So, hey everyone. Today I want to do a rendition of this talk that I got for the Under Control Mentors Conference this year. And I wanted to share it with you guys too. I think it's a really interesting topic. And it's the secret to Under Control's continuous success. So, a bit about me. A lot of you might not know me. I'm Henrique Schmitz. I'm 27. I'm a mentor and drive coach for Team 1156 Under Control. I've been doing FRC for a long time, since 2013. And I've recently moved here to New York. I've been taking a master's in data science at Columbia. So I'm around here, and then I could make this presentation here also. And in Brazil, I'm from a city that you probably wouldn't know. I try to find some parallels here in the US to it. It's something similar to Garland, Texas, or maybe Tacoma, Washington. So it's like not a small city, but also not a place everyone would know of. But if you go to a random school in that city, you will find a team who has been winning Blue Banners every single year for 12 years. This year we've managed to, for the second time, be Impact Award finalists, and we've gathered, I think, 7 regional wins and 7 Impact Awards in the past decade. And this year I saw in Chief Delphi people were talking about if New York was a district, and they wanted to figure out a bit of the distribution of event wins as First Pick or Alliance captain, and somehow the team from random Tacoma, but 5,000 miles in Brazil, is still the 9th most team who's in wins, in regional wins in the New York State, even though we're not from here, since 2015, and we haven't competed in New York since COVID. And there's something going on here, because momentary success, it can be due to luck. Maybe you got a very lucky draw for qualifications. Or maybe you were playing an important match, a critical moment, and a robot on the other side broke and you got lucky and you won because of that. Or maybe even, for some reason, the best alliance decided to pick you. And you won and you were lucky. And you could even say that maybe you were super lucky and you got a generation of students who were just built different and were just so good. But none of that can explain 12 years in a row. If you had 80% chance of making it to champs in a single year, if you repeat that for 10 years, you're going to have a 10% chance of having that full streak. So it can't be luck anymore. And I'm starting to suspect that we might be doing something right. And you could be thinking, okay, congrats and all, nice for you, but why should I care? Like, are you just here to brag that you guys have been doing so well? Or like, why should I care about that success? And my point is that these results and this success, it's much more than just awards. For me, I was working at one of the best tech companies in the region around Novo Hamburgo for 7 years, I believe, before moving here. And that's because of the experiences I've had with Under Control. We have former team members, actually they're still mentor every now and then, working with like huge YouTubers and traveling the world and teaching people and getting invaluable experiences. I wouldn't be here at Columbia having this awesome opportunity to do a master's at one of the best education institutions in the world if it wasn't for that. And most of all, if it wasn't for under control success, probably there wouldn't be first FRC regionals in Brazil. And that's a direct result of that. So it matters, not just because of awards and medals, but because we can change people's lives. And the second thing is that it doesn't happen naturally. In many ways, this was an accident. You might sometimes look that it's supposed to be, but it isn't. So today's message is especially for mentors, but it's good for everybody to know those things. And I want to answer the question, what is the formula to replicate or continue the success that we've had? And you might think, okay, you've gone mad if you think you'll be able to distill everything that's necessary for success in an 1 hour presentation. And probably, yeah, I think I have. But also I understand that I don't know all the reasons for that. I can't know. And my goal is just to try to use the experiences I've had with Under Control and try to find out some of the things that matter the most. And so if you look at all the things that Under Control does, there's a lot of things that we do. And hey, some of those things are even good things that are helping us. And you might look at other teams like 1678, and they're doing a lot of good things that are helping them. And some of them will be the same as us, some of them will be different. And if you pick other random teams who are doing well, like 1690, they will also be doing their set of good things. And the way I think I'll approach this and try to figure out why is that success is trying to look at the middle, like what are we doing in common with those teams, and what can we not explain without saying that in teams that are being successful as the core, the essence of that. So first, let me start talking about what's not essential in my view. That doesn't mean those things aren't good, but you can be successful without those. And I kind of bamboozled some people back in Brazil when I was preparing this presentation by asking them their opinion for what's the reason for the continuous success we've had, in part to figure out things that people think are reasons for success, and I would have good arguments to disagree. I've also used some of the reasons for why I think we're successful, but also for things I disagree with. And the first thing is that some responses were talking about the team's legacy, how long we've been here, or how much time we've had and experience we've gathered, or learning from having the challenge of being the oldest team in Brazil and being in the situation we were in, or wanting to keep this team history and legacy going and working harder because of that. And so to try to figure out if that makes sense, let's travel back in time a bit and look at a team to understand this. So let's go back to January 2014. Thankfully, I'm not old enough and it hasn't been long enough that you all were probably at least babies when this happened. But yeah, getting close to having students who weren't even alive at that time. And let's look at the oldest FRC team outside of North America. That team is in a private school, nice, and more resources in the south of Brazil. And they already have 14 years of experience. That team has managed to get 5 blue banners. It's a good achievement for 14 years. Most teams don't get that. Which was the most out of any team in Brazil at the moment, and even more than Orbit at that point. And that team was about to do something you guys wouldn't expect, which is go on to never win a regional ever again. Because I'm not talking about Under Control. I'm talking about Team 333 Brazilian machine. It was founded by the same guy who went on to found Under Control. And this is not a dig at them. I don't know the reasons why they failed and why the team couldn't win anymore and eventually closed. But that's what happened. And those guys lived 30 minutes away from us. You couldn't find a better parallel for us, with the exception that they were way more successful. So why was it that Under Control, who had a single blue banner from 2008, our most recent award was actually a judges award in 2009, and we hadn't gone to playoffs since 2009. We had less experience, time, and less success than them. And for some reason, we qualified for every single championship since then. So any reason we tell ourselves to why does this success happen has to work with this. And this also brings me to a thing I tell my students a lot. Because when you've been having success for several years, it might seem that's destined. But the blue banners hanging above you while you're working, they're just pieces of cloth. They don't guarantee any success at all. Every single year, you have to earn it all over again by working harder than the others. Sty here has had a great year. I think your robot was like top 20 in the world by EPA. Congrats, January 1st, your robot's as good as everybody else's, and you have to earn it all over again if you want to continue being there. But those blue banners do carry something. The weight of expectation of now trying to keep that success up and that level up. And the weight of now being a role model for others and trying to be as good a role model as you've had. Because don't fool yourselves, you'll go to a regional here in New York and people will be looking at you as examples of how to be. If you understand that and you act like that, you will be better, but it does only mean more responsibility. Okay, so second thing, money, resources, more space to practice on, better equipment, more resources for outreach, we can do more events, more things like that. That's great, right? And don't get me wrong, resources are awesome. Like I said, those things that are not essential are still good. And better materials, they can make things easier. A good field can allow you to have better practice. You can build more mechanisms and more robots and get better performance out of that. Money can solve so many problems. And for sure, I'm always trying to get more money, training space, resources, everything for my team because that does help. But let's look at an example. 604, Quicksilver. If you look at their Scrappy Not Crappy presentation, they mentioned that they have a grand 2 drill presses, 1 miter saw, some hand tools. And then like some of their students have 3D printers and some mentors have some bigger machinery that's very old than that. They get help from teams around them to build their parts. Some friends who've spoken with them said they get mentorship online 3 times a week, and then they have to move everything they have on their pit somewhere else to like train for the weekend. They actually have like all wooden pits that are super easy to transport because of that. We've copied that. They don't have a dedicated practice field, and they're 3-time division winners and broke Citrus Circuit's streak of 23 non-stop regional wins. If those guys with those resources and that amount of things can do it, what's your excuse? And if you look at Brazil, for example, thankfully now some people from Under Control have managed to open a company called Stemos, and they can import some FRC materials. And now we can get Krakens for the very cheap price of 4,600 reais, which is about $850, which only accounts for the exact difference in cost if you try to account for the difference in purchasing power. The median salary in Brazil is 3,500 reais, and from what I've looked up in the US, it's 5,200 a month. So that would mean it's kind of like you're buying Krakens for $5,000. It feels kind of like that, and if you pick different metrics, it will look a bit different, but that's roughly how much the cost of those Krakens will feel for us in relation to what it would be for you guys here. And if we're smart and we can bring them back from whenever we compete here in championships and everything, we can get the cost of that down to feeling like maybe $1,200. And still, you can see a lot of examples of success without those resources. Team 1902 Exploding Bacon, who's a Hall of Fame team, we visited them when we were playing in Orlando in 22. Their lab is in a garage. Out of our 12-year streak, winning every single year, 9 of those were competing here in the US against teams who don't have to feel like they're paying $5,000 for a Kraken or at least $1,200. If you look at 1323, they're from middle of nowhere, California. It's a rural city. They're from an underprivileged school, and now, yeah, they have a lot of resources because they created West Coast products, but they created that to solve that problem. In 23, Under Control was alliance captain for our division in the championship without having a swerve, because we hadn't managed to get enough resources to get a swerve set up. If one Kraken costs that, try to make the math for a full set of swerve modules, sensors, and everything you need. And we're still using a 5-year-old Limelight 2 Plus. On this year's robot, it was used, and we still managed to be the 3rd overall pick in our division. So yeah, you can make things work without money. It's great, but you can't be telling yourself that you're not winning because of that. So the third thing, and this one will be much quicker, how the team is organized, or our good scouting, or our processes, or how we do the events for outreach. And this one's simpler, and I'll borrow a bit of what Matt Goldman, a mentor for 1678, who I think is now retired, said on Chief Delphi. There isn't one magic bullet. If there was, the secret would have gotten out a long time ago. And my point to that is, like, every team has their processes. And so many teams have a lot of success with different ones. And the point I want to bring is that these good processes, again, they're good, but they're coming from something more essential. And so, one of the ideas I want you guys to keep is attributing this success of other teams to external factors is one of the best things you can do if you want to never be able to reach that same success and to reach their level. And it's only when we start having brutal honesty about what's actually in our control that we can become better, and we can look at ourselves and we can see how we can improve. So let's talk about what I see as the essential. And I said we can see a bit of the non-essential by what we can show success with in other teams and they don't have that. for this, I can't prove that every single successful team that's been winning a lot has it, but those are things I've seen under control that I relate a lot with the success we've had. And so, first thing is I've got a question for you. And if anyone has an idea what this is, feel free to chip in. What are these numbers? 1D, 4D, 6D, 7D. Do you have a guess?
Orbitals.
No, that looks like it. 16D. Well, obviously, this is the Under Control Chief Delphi Addiction Championship. And Bruno over there has a problem. This is a funny way of looking at it, and I've actually had a quick look at Stuy, and you guys have some people around the 7 days close to as big of a problem as I have. But why does this matter? Like, okay, we've got people who are on Chief Delphi way too much, but does this matter? And my point with this is like, this is a source of knowledge. In Chief Delphi, you have a lot of terrible opinions. People will be talking about what they don't know, or it will be opinions. But also that's where you can go and have some of the most successful people in this program sharing some of the most important lessons they've learned. And it's not just Chief Delphi. Powerhouse teams will be sharing a ton of presentations, a ton of their materials, and a ton of what they see as the sources of their success. You have behind the bumpers, CAD, GitHubs. You can look at photos from other teams, and you can copy what they've done based on that, and you can base your work off that. You can look at impact essays, and a lot of public materials of what the teams who've been doing well impact are doing. And you can come to conferences like this, or you can watch other people's conferences. People will post videos of those online. You can even learn from places for things outside FRC, and those can be useful for FRC. The big point is the constant learning. Because if you're doing something completely different from everyone else, it means one of two things. Either you've got a giga brain and you found something so smart no one thought of, or you're doing something really stupid. And I would wager that if you're doing something different to everyone else because you don't know what they're doing, it's most likely the stupid bit. So you gotta know what people are doing. You gotta be constantly learning and evolving and becoming better. And this, I saw, was one of the first things that started making Under Control, turning it from a team who managed to not win a single award in 5 years to then go on and win consistently for 12. So yeah, the first thing is a lot of our team members are constantly learning from the best. And at Under, we've got so many people who live and breathe robotics. And that does a lot. And so the second thing is, when will you guys see the best that Under has to offer? Well, if you go to any random FRC or FTC or FLL event in Brazil, you'll see something like this. This is the guys from Stemos who I mentioned, and all of those are basically Under Control alumni. People who've been doing FRC for 10 years and for some reason are coming back and volunteering and helping and working with that and living that, but they're alumni who are coming back. If you go to our lab on a random day, I would leave my job at 6 p.m., try to get there at 6:30, I would see stuff like that. A lot of people who had their time at Under Control, who graduated and who are coming back to help out and to bring their knowledge back. This was on a Sunday at my house, the building had a space you could use for like parties, and we had to do CAD. Our school was closed, so we were like, okay, I'll open that place. Come on in, I'll help you guys, and I'll put in the effort, and you have more alumni and mentors who are there helping the students make the CAD for the robot that did that. Or you go to the school on a random Saturday morning and you have a ton of mentors and alumni out there planning how we're going to make the team better and how we're going to improve things and where are we moving forward. Or just like having lunch with everyone, or if you're familiar with our impact video from this year that was shown at Words, you might know that we've had one of the worst floods in our state's history in May last year. And you might think that it's easier to have something that looks nice and you can be doing volunteering when there is a catastrophe, and you can be maybe winning just because of that. But if you went to see what was happening there those days, you wouldn't just see, we're helping with that, but you would see so many people from family members who haven't even joined under control to Gustavo back there, who's bald from being so long at FRC and who was there when everything started in 2002. And he's been doing FRC for 20 years and he's still there with the team. So under control's greatest achievements are a direct result of this engagement. People just don't live under control, basically. Well, some do, but so many don't. And there's an incredible amount of alumni helping in one way or another. Does this mean it's mentor built? No. But this does mean that new generations of students won't have to make the same mistakes as I've done. They'll have to be creative and they'll have to find other new fun ways of screwing up. They don't get to make the same screw ups as I've done. And that knowledge that we've been seeking and building, that's passed across generations, and that's distilled and that's kept. And the good processes that are good, that I mentioned are essential, well, they're passed along. It's not useful for you to have good processes if the people are going to leave and that's going to be forgotten. So we can have some mentors who are specialists at some things, looking at those details, while others can look at the whole and try to make the team better as a whole. And we can also share the team's history and first values and make our students better. So that means our students will become better, faster, and will be more effective because they have that support. So second thing, lots of experienced mentors, meaning that we can make new students learn faster and pass the knowledge along. And one interesting case is what happens with our robot and the technical side of our team on our first regional this year. We went there with a streak of 31 match wins in Brazil. It had been over a year we had won every single match we played in Brazil. But we did overbuild our robot a little. We didn't give ourselves enough time to test things, to break them, to improve them, to make sure that the robot was actually bulletproof. So we start playing the practice matches. We try to climb and we snap like the hex shaft in half when trying to climb. And then again we do something and we break the coupling on the max planetary. Or we played a bit and the then I even think that wasn't the 5-year-old limelight. This was like a newer one we got last year that lost the connection. And we started having trouble after trouble after trouble. So many issues. And yeah, we played a few matches, got a bit lucky, won a few ones, and then, yeah, we lost one, streak's gone. That's annoying. We really wanted to keep that, but streak's gone. And we play a few more, and we lose again. And play more matches, we lose, and we don't get picked by the first alliance for playoffs. On playoffs, we fall to the lower bracket, and then we lose the event without even getting to the finals. Which for a team who didn't lose a single match in over a year and had won every single official FRC event back in Brazil to 2008. Yes, there's a huge gap there, but we had been winning non-stop there. That's way short of our expectations. But hey, at least Impact, we're going to the championship, streak's alive, so we're cool, right? And what are we going to do about that? We managed to finally get regionals in Brazil, so it's closer for us. But don't fool yourselves as it being a regional like you guys have here, where you can just take a train and be there. This was in Brazil. It's still like, I think 2,000 miles, 1,500 miles away. So it was still like a huge flyaway for us. We didn't have a lot of stuff, and we were flying direct to the next regional in São Paulo. That was next weekend. So we didn't have a lot of time. But hey, we were like at the airport the very next day, and we were already sharing some stuff that looked like this, where we were doing some random drawings, trying to figure out, hey, if we add like something that opens up on our intake, we can make it start intaking properly and not have coral falling where it shouldn't. Then on the hotel lobby, we spent like a couple hours building this full list of every single thing that had gone wrong, why was that, and what were we going to do to fix it. We had then people figure out issues with the vision processor we were using and be fixing that on the rooms at the hotel. Then we thankfully was in São Paulo, and there was another team that had their labs, their lab in the city, and they had a few things we could use to practice. It was still like 1 hour drive away because the traffic in that city is terrible, and the van we had to take the team to and from the competition wouldn't take us there, so we had to like Uber 1 hour, and thankfully one of the parents of the kids was there, and he could like toss the robot in the back of his car and take it there, so we could go to another team and practice a bit and try to refine and try to implement those fixes and do those things. And then we go to the São Paulo regional. We played the first match. It was basically 3v1. The two robots that were playing against us weren't doing great, and yeah, we win with the high score. We played a few extra matches, and we win with the high score again, and then another high score, and then another high score, and yeah, we won that regional without losing a single match. And we have a lot of other examples from that. If you look at our mentors conference for last year, you have Luis, the guy who's now riding helicopters and now talking about how our scouting was born from when we were first seeds for the first time ever in Virginia in 2015, and we wound up picking a robot that tried to get the trash cans with a goddamn tennis ball on a string. And we were like, why? Like, why did we fail so badly, and what are we going to do about that? How are we going to fix it? Or in 2016, when we had a really good robot and won the Long Island Regional, but then at championships drove, I think, 2 out of 10 matches we had. And we were there like December 30 on our lab, still trying to like figure out better ways to build drivetrains and to improve that, because when things go wrong for us, the answer always is, what do we do to never fail this way again? And having this value and having this intensity of how are we going to be better and improve and make sure that those errors are unacceptable. And that's an important value, but there are a lot of them. Like, you'll see unwavering dedication on a lot of team members in our team. That we, like, the robot for us is never good enough. We're always willing to start more projects for impact, and yeah, even though we're paying $5,000 or what it feels like $5,000 for Krakens, our goal is still to be competing with the best teams in the world and yeah, winning. So like we go to Houston once our city tour before the competition. We're touring teams' labs and going there and like making sure that the robot we had to rebuild because of the travel we did is working properly, is well tuned, the autos are working, and we're caring about every detail. So the third thing is a lot of shared values. It's this dedication, this being detail-oriented, trying to always improve and being persistent and not taking something less than perfection as enough. If we're not winning every single match in a regional we're going to, and then winning the impact on top of that, we can still be doing more things and we'll often be still doing more things. And then you might be thinking, okay, those are good, but like, is there something different in the water in Novo Hamburgo, the kind of Tacoma equivalent in Brazil? So we find so many students that will first have these right values of dedication, persistent, being detail-oriented, live and breathe FRC, so they're always learning more, and then want to come back later and mentor for several years on the team. Like, why does that happen? Is there something special in that random school, in that random place, 5,000 miles away from here that makes this happen? And no, the thing is, this and the big thing that I see among all top performing teams are this organizational culture. And I would call organizational culture, or a culture in general, is when a set of values that permeates people and generation in a group happens. That's culture. So does that mean that under control's continuous success, it comes from like a PowerPoint on culture and the values you gotta have that we show our students when they join the team? Or do we toss a book for them to read or a video to watch? It's like, okay, those values permeate the team and you have so many people doing that, but why? And that's the problem with culture. Like, in which drawer do we start our culture? Stuy has been doing really well. Like, can someone point me to the locker where I can get some of that culture and bring it back so we can also build a top 20 robot? That's the issue with culture. It's the air around us. Is Stuy's culture in this room here right now? Yes. Where is it? You can see it. And that's one of the issues. It can seem so easy because it's just like act a little bit different, value things a little bit differently. But that's why it's so hard. You can't touch it. You can't really make it, and you can't teach culture. So, in my view, culture, how do you define culture? For me, culture is a transmittable disease. It's kind of like you have the flu. Can you give a presentation to someone about the flu and then they're sick? No. You can talk as much as you want about the flu to someone, they're not going to get the flu. But I guarantee you that if you've got the flu and you're interacting with them every single day, yeah, eventually they'll get sick, sure. And that's how culture works, sure. And that's also why I mentioned that this talk was specially aimed at mentors. Because those are the people who are going to be most able to transmit that, create that, and foster that. Because as mentors, our students, they are so much of a mirror. They will, I've seen so many students from me absorbing so many aspects of the things I do, and they will do that with people they see as role models. And yeah, being knowledgeable in what you do, like mastering those topics, and showing a lot of dedication and that that this matters for you does help, because they will see you as more of a role model and they will start doing things more like you. But you don't have to be successful for that. My mentor, Felipe, he was mentoring a team who hadn't won a single award in 5 years. Like when we won, what was the name of that award? It was Entrepreneurship Award in Long Island in 2014. On that night at the hotel room, he was crying on the speech he gave us because of how much that one random entrepreneurship award mattered to him. And so you don't have to be successful. I learned so much from him and I improved so much because of that. But it's also not just saying things. It's what we do, day in and day out. Again, you can't present the flu to someone and they'll be sick. So yeah, why do students under control come back to mentor? Because they were taught from people who came back to mentor, who did value those things and who did do those things. Why do they live and breathe FRC? Yeah, because they were taught by people who also lived and breathed FRC and showed that they cared about that deeply. Why do they constantly learn from the best and try to improve? They were taught by people who were constantly learning from the best and trying to improve. And why do they not stop short of perfection? Because they were taught by people who were not stopping short of perfection. Yes, that's, as mentors, we can do that the most, but the more we get into leadership positions, the more we can start bringing a bit of us into that, and the more we can start trying to figure out, okay, what are those values, what are those things that matter, and try to be an example for that, and bring the people around us up so they improve. So, for example, how did I learn CAD? I've been a bit of an everything mentor under control for a while, but I've mostly done CAD when I was a student. And my mentor, he wasn't great at it. He was taking mechanical engineering, but he knew just a little bit. So at that time, the team couldn't afford so much, but he went there and he spent $200 back in 2013, which was a lot more, and especially if you consider the currency exchange and how much more there is in Brazil, to buy CAD lessons for the team. I wound up being the one who took most of them, but the thing is, he saw he didn't have a lot of the knowledge, but he figured out a way to give me those opportunities and to be there and to show hey, do you want to learn? Do you care about this? Yeah, then I'll figure out a way to make it work for you. And that's so powerful. And this is a very good example. This is from 2016, so it was my last year actually being a student. And this was 2:55 in the morning. It's not healthy. We don't do that anymore, and try not doing that. But my main point is, yeah, I'm there on the side, and the guy next to me was my mentor. Not because he was paid for that, not because he had to be there, but because he cared deeply. And if we were willing to do everything and put all of ourselves into being the best, he was willing to be there for us and go along and support us in that. So yeah, that's why we won't stop, because we're learning from the people who are giving those examples. And how have I done this since I've started to mentor? In 2023, like the team was still a bit coming back from COVID, so like not a lot of people were staying like super long or helping so much. So I was like every day there till like 10:30 p.m. on a super random room in the school, and if there were like 4 students willing to stay and make the robot work, I would be there with them. And I actually I used a good trick where there was this like burger place that people liked a lot and found it really good. So like I was frequently like, hey, do you guys like want to order some food from there tonight? And people would like stay a bit longer or like come in for the food and stay and work on the robot, you know. Yeah, they were tricked into becoming better. Or that same year when we've made it as alliance captains, and it was the first time I couldn't like really be in Houston with the rest of the team, but still like from home. I took the lead with some other students and mentors who weren't there and could take the time to look at every single team in our division and go over our scouting like throughout the nights. This was us watching the matches next day, and I hadn't slept since, but we wanted to ensure that we don't know when are we going to ever have the opportunity of leading a division alliance. So we want to make sure that we'll make the best possible picks. And if there were students willing to go over the scouting and do that, I was willing to be there with them and help out. So if I ask, what does every elite team have? I think Jared from 254 put it really well. It's a group of first-class, like-minded mentors who are willing to put a lot of work in, and to be this example and to make sure that the students who get to the team become the better versions of themselves that they can as quickly as possible and improve as quickly as possible. And so those leading mentors and the people in those positions, they won't actually be spending that much of their time like cutting pieces of metal or like writing lines of code or writing for the impact essay. But mostly they will be guaranteeing that those right values for success are being created, and that the students in their team and the other mentors are energized and want to put more in and want to be better and want to improve, and that they're putting the right resources in the right places for success. Not dealing at the robot broke this match because someone from mechanical messed up and got something wrong, but because we had a problem at program level where we don't teach people to be able to solve those problems in better ways. So we're not looking at the solution for our problem, we're looking at the program as a whole and how can we build a better program to make that, because that will last so long and that will guarantee success for so long. So what is an elite team? An elite team is a machine that is very good at building people who are very good at building robots who are very good. And if we want that continuous success, we gotta be thinking about how are we building this machine, how are we improving this, and how are we going in that direction. So yeah, this is very hard. But if we want a decade long of winning, that's the direction we gotta be working towards to build that continuous success. Thankfully, this time we presented a bit quicker, so I can share a good phrase from, this is Chris Hadfield. He is a famous Canadian astronaut who was the captain of the International Space Station for a while. And in his book, he has a very good quote where he talks about attitudes. And in the rocket business, attitudes, it means the velocity and direction you're pointing at. So it's, I'm going in that direction at that speed. And that's the most important thing that they have to maintain. It doesn't matter if like they're in the right place in space, if their attitude is wrong and they're like speeding towards Earth when they shouldn't, that's a huge problem. But if they're maintaining the right attitude over time, things work out. And with our lives and with building good robotics teams, that's the same thing. It's all about constantly working in that direction, maintaining the right culture and attitude, and with time, the team by itself will improve. There's so many things that we have to do for it to improve, but if we're going in the right direction constantly, the team will get better. And to close out, I think Mike from Citrus Circuits put it perfectly in a thread on Chief Delphi about getting to Einstein. And he says, I'll have to read this one, this log from 90th to 99th percentile requires immense focus, sacrifice, continuity, grit, resource building, innovation, and passion. You need to commit to daily becoming a better version of yourself and asking the same of your teammates and others around you as you embark on this journey together. So yeah, enjoy the ride. And thank you for your time.